This
So,
conference will now be recorded.
so thank you so much. We wanted to just be able to carve out some time to talk with your team. I know that sometimes on the bigger webinars, because of the way our conference call system is set up, we have to mute all of the lines, and it's sometimes hard to get questions out or have sort of deeper discussion. And so Sharee and I just have some different resources and data that we want to make sure you know is available to you and where you can find those tools. And then we also wanted to leave time to just have some discussion and hear things that either you're struggling with or where you could use more help. I know we've got some rock stars on the phone here today, and so we can learn from each other, but I just wanted to make sure that there was a time when we could come together and do this. So we did want to just start off by really thanking you for your support. And I know that Catherine and Lee and Liz are also new to the team within sort of the past year. And so we're incredibly grateful to see our ranks growing within Colorado, and want to continue to build on that momentum. And so having you on our team allows us to serve more families each year so that we can provide the tools that are needed and also support recovery for families after disasters. And because of this support, we've already been able to help 15,000 families this year with emergency shelter. But something that Sharee and I talk about a lot is the fact that behind kind of these bigger numbers, behind every single one of those is a family and a story and an individual that you're actually helping. And so Sharee was just going to share with us about one of those individuals.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to pull up a story about Carol. So Carol is actually from Dominica, and she lived in the house that she had rented with her boyfriend and 3 children. They were actually building a home, and she had lived in the home for about 1 week before Maria hit. And when Maria hit, so it was very scary. She had never seen a hurricane like that, and this was the first time she'd experienced anything like this. It was so big, she actually thought everybody was dead. So the rain was pouring from about 4 a.m. and she described the moment that a big tree fell in her garden, and she actually thought that was the end of it. That was the worst. But she was wrong, because she woke up in the middle of the night and everything was shaking because of the wind. Her son ran into her room and said, "Mommy, your room, it's filling with water." Water was pouring through there, and there was no chance to save anything. Not her clothes, nothing could be saved in time. She opened the door as the eye of the storm was passing, and she could see her neighbor's house, and it was gone. She couldn't move because of all of the trees. They had to climb up over the debris, the sharp iron piercing out above. She described the morning after like it was another world, a strange planet. She tells us that the destruction changed her daily life, for her and for many in the community. People could not access the roads, therefore there was no markets or means to get to work. It was priority to find clean water and food while seeking some shelter. Again, that meant climbing over trees and debris. It was tiring, she says. When you can't have a shower, if you get a rash from the water, and you're thirsty, and after a while the heat of the sun is unbearable, she exclaimed. 2 months after the storm, Cheryl and her family had to leave the rented house and build transitional shelter. Well, 9 months on, Cheryl says that she feels much more relaxed. She does have a shelter box tent, and that is helping to bring back some normalcy for her and her family. She ends with, "When I watch things going so quickly, here everyone is getting their roofs done. But something about it since Maria. I feel nicer. It feels good. I don't know necessarily what it is, but I can tell everyone's getting their house done, and everyone is stronger."
Thank you, Sharee. So that's just one example of how you're making an impact to so many different families who are in need across the globe. And so, we're incredibly grateful to this team for doing that. We wanted to take a moment and celebrate some of your regional successes. So within Zone J, which is sort of this monster territory that we can show you a map of, but it includes Colorado and then kind of goes north to the Canadian border. But your area has brought on 5 new ambassadors this year, so congratulations. The team has done 155 volunteer hours of service that have been reported, and that's 119 more than this same time last year. And your team has raised $33,000, which again is more than last year by about $18,000. So thank you all for your hard work and for helping spread the word about ShelterBox. This is what the kind of Region G territory looks like. And I've worked in this territory before in my prior job, and we would joke that there were more cows than people in some of these areas. And so even though it's a big geography, we've made this to align with the Rotary districts and with the zones. And so we can actually show you what some of that looks like. But on this map, you can actually see where the other ambassadors are within this region. And so we are looking to recruit some more ambassadors in some of the more rural parts, like in Montana, for example. So we've got plans and are working on that, but there is an interactive ambassador map that's available via the portal, and Sharee updates it every month. And so you can actually click on any of these dots and it brings up the person's name and what Rotary district they're a part of and that sort of thing. So if you're ever wondering kind of about who's around you or that type of information, that's all available to you via the ambassador portal. And then if somebody has a green box as their icon, that means that they have like a full box of demo equipment. And then if it's just a person, that's an indication that they don't have all of the gear like a tent, but they do, make presentations and advocate on our behalf. And then there are some little black dots that you can see that actually indicate who the Rotary liaisons are in that area. And that's a opportunity we feel like we have. So while our ambassadors agree to go out and, do monthly presentations and to get out on the road and talk to other clubs, Rotary liaisons are a representative who can serve within a club, and they agree to receive updates. And they're really that mouthpiece for ShelterBox. So, Liz, as you might not be able to be in a club you might do a presentation and then not go back there for another year or two. And so this would be a person who would still be giving monthly updates back to the club because they receive that information directly from ShelterBox. And then they can say during Happy Bucks or during other club announcements, hey, these are all the places ShelterBox is deployed right now. Or, winter is coming. Now would be a fun time for us to plan a Shine for ShelterBox event within our club. And it's a nice way to kind of keep contact with those clubs and to keep that connection alive and the information flow there. In the months that we're not actually there doing a presentation. Those liaisons can also, fill out the grant paperwork for that club or encourage the board of the club to join the HERO program. And so we really see a lot of benefits of having those liaisons. So just kind of something to keep in mind if we are out there doing presentations. If we can, ask while we're out there, is there someone within the club that would be willing to serve in a capacity like that? It's easy for people to get signed up, and it's kind of a low impact, minimal time volunteer opportunity. But oftentimes we've had those liaisons later become ShelterBox ambassadors as they learn more about our mission and want to become more involved. In terms of resources, I feel like everyone on the phone kind of has a good sense of these, but we just wanted to show what's out there in case maybe you haven't seen some of this stuff. We'll talk about them on different webinars, but I know everybody can't be on every single one, and we post about them on Facebook, but sometimes that hits on a day when you might not be looking online. So we've done a lot of work. Our Rotary Relations Committee, which David is also on, put a lot of thought and work into creating some playbooks that have to do with different big events within Rotary. So how to make the most out of a Rotary District conference and our attendance there, out of a PETS, so a President-elect training seminar, and then also what we can do with youth exchange. And so there's separate playbooks for each of these that really have best practices from around the country. As an example, we had an ambassador recently set up at a district conference, and they had the tent set up next to the stage. So every speaker who was coming on the stage had to walk through the tent before they could come up onto the stage, and it just put the tent in like a high profile area. So there's some different ideas like that that are included. Those are all available on the portal to go through and look at. We also have things like artwork for pop-up banners or materials like the Meet Tabitha placard that you see in the corner there that can just be printed off and added to a display if you need items like that. On the portal is also where we always update. You can see like the updated deployment brief slide. So if you're doing a presentation that week, you can quickly download the latest on where Shelterbox is in the world and add it into your presentation. But there's a ton on there in terms of the handbook and Rotary 101 and any new resources that we create, we put onto the portal. So if you want to check back at different times, and we always, again, announce on Facebook if there are any new resources, but we're constantly working to add things to help you there. And I know everyone on this call is on the Facebook page, but that's really where we can do almost up to the moment updates. So if we get new deployment news or if an earthquake happens, we make sure and put it on our ambassador Facebook page. But it's also a great place for ambassadors to share with one another different ideas and tips and ask questions. I've seen ambassadors say, you know, I have my first presentation in a school. Does anyone have anything special they do for youth? And then they'll get answers from other ambassadors. So any questions about any of those pieces, or you guys know it all already, those parts?
Sarah, it's Sharee, and I just want to interject very quickly. So to clear up any confusion, one of those first slides said Zone J when it should have said Zone G recruited 5 new ambassadors. So just wanted to correct myself there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Sharee. Okay, and then, sorry, there's a lot of stuff on these slides, but I just wanted to show you. We'll send you these slides after the presentation, but these are the districts of Rotary that make up that area that we saw on the map. And so here you can see the total number of clubs within each of those districts, and then also how many Shelterbox ambassadors we have working in those districts. And so whereas 5450 has more ambassadors there, and they have more clubs too to cover, we do have some districts within your zone that don't have any ambassadors. And so this is just an ask that if you know other people within these districts, so District 5390, 5630, 5670, or 5690, I know sometimes these different groups come together for like multi-district pets or things like that, and we are looking for some Shelterbox ambassadors in these districts where we don't have coverage. Also, because in some of the districts that you see here, there are multiple ambassadors within that district, Sharee and I went through and sort of nominated a lead to be the main kind of go-to person within that district, so that rather than 7 of our volunteers reaching out to the district governor or asking for a booth at Pets, we can coordinate efforts within those various districts. And so as you can see here for District 5440, Catherine and Lee, you know, if you wouldn't mind taking the lead on that district, and David for 5450, it was just to help sort of coordinate efforts within those particular districts so that we can, you know, kind of make a plan together and say, okay, I've got the clubs on the eastern side of this district, and if you could take the ones in the west, that way we're not duplicating efforts. Does all that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Awesome. Perfect. And then I know there's a lot on this slide, but this is just to show you the types of data we have. And, you know, Sharee's name is Sharee Sheets, but we tease her name is actually Sharee Spreadsheets, because she's able to really pull apart this data and to slice and dice it and help us look at it in all different ways. So we have information like a breakdown by state that she works on every quarter. And so we can look at a quarterly comparison or a year-to-date comparison of dollars, or also we can break it out by the Rotary year, since that's what our clubs operate on. And so we have all of this information for all of the states, you know, within your region. And so you can see the breakdown. And then we also have by district what those numbers look like as well. And so there's a definite correlation between districts where we have ambassadors and those that we don't, and the funds that we receive. And so that's why we're sort of pushing to have coverage in all of our different districts across the US, but we can send you what this data looks like for your district. And then we can also even take it a level deeper. And I know this is kind of an ugly, fuzzy slide, but basically we have reports that would show you every Rotary Club in your district who's given to us, what their last gift date was, what the amount of that gift was, and also their lifetime giving. And this can help with a couple different things. If we see that maybe there's a club that hasn't given since 2013, it's probably a good time to go back and do another visit. Or alternatively, we'll see clubs that have an awesome, lifetime giving history. And we might notice that to date, a club has given $25,000 to Shelter Box. So that can also trigger like, oh, maybe I can go and do a special like thank you to that club and can mention it when I go back and talk to them. So this is a spreadsheet that Sharee actually manages, and it's kind of a big report that she pulls, but it's already built. So if you tell her at any point in time, like, hey, I'd like to see the numbers for District 5450, she'll pull it and send it over to you. And then you can go through and see what that looks like for your particular area. Sharee, any other bits about the data you wanted to mention?
No, I'm going to be sending an updated Rotary organization giving report with the notes from today's call. And with that, encourage you to reach out to me anytime you're curious about district history or club history. I can give you live updates anytime. Quarterly, this data, this deep dive data lives on the ambassador portal, so you can go find it there. But reach out to me anytime you're curious and would like some more information. I'm here for you.
Any data questions or things you guys might need that aren't already in reports that you're currently seeing? Okay. So then we just wanted to talk a bit, if any of you are planners like Sharee and I, we have a new tool that we think might be able to help kind of map out your year. And so, while we're staff people of Shelter Box, Sharee and I also operate as ambassadors within our states too. So she and I both go out and do presentations. I was up in Taos last week, and she's been doing a road show around Arizona. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about how we've been able to, both tackle areas where ambassadors haven't been working before, or in her case, there was a region where they had heard about Shelter Box kind of 5 years ago, but then some of the contact fell off and the donations had declined. So she's now reintroducing us to a lot of the clubs in that region. And to that end, our Rotary Relations Committee worked on this planner that can be used to kind of help outline the year. So I know that some of you all do this organically already, and if you've got it all in your head, that's great. But if you are the type of person that wants to sit down and kind of map everything out, this is just a tool to kind of help you walk through some of that and what it can look like for your district. And so it's just meant to be a yearly planner, so you can think about things like, what would be the ways for me to create awareness within my district? So maybe it's having a tent for the first time at district conference. Maybe it's putting content into the district newsletter quarterly. Whatever those things are that we think would help build awareness within the district, you can jot there. And then in terms of engagement, do I want to make sure I do 10 club presentations this year, or do I need to go back and do refreshers or do thank you visits for some of those clubs that have a higher lifetime giving? And so you can list those out there, and there's examples that you can follow. And then again, in terms of results, maybe I want 3 new hero clubs to come out of New Mexico this year. So there's a place there to kind of jot down what we're hoping for as well. And then we included this calendar tool. On the left, you can see what is a standard Rotary year and when things fall, but we know this can vary according to your district. So I know that, I had my pets in March, and I think that Sharee's was in April, so there's some flexibility there among the different districts, but this would allow you to actually pencil in what that looks like for your area, so when those big events are coming up, and then can start to build a plan, so you can kind of really look at your whole Rotary year and know what those important moments in time are, or if you might need some more helpers recruited by February, because you'll have to set up a big display by then, or that type of thing. And then there's a page that just, again, lets you map out then more specifically. If you said my goal is to go visit 10 clubs this year, you can spell out which clubs those actually are. And then another thing that we've seen really work in particular areas where we've had success is having a strong relationship with the district leadership. So a district governor has the power during their year to encourage every club within their district to support Shelterbox. Other times they've given a district matching grant so that if clubs within the district, donate $1,000 to Shelterbox, the district will match those dollars. So having that key person in place who's already a Shelterbox supporter has really been a great thing for us in some of our areas. There's a district in Washington where for, I know, at least 3 years in a row, the district governor named Shelterbox as their kind of favored project. And so they would encourage all 60 clubs in the district to give. So we would get $60,000 a year from that district. And as you can imagine, for 3 years in a row, it was a significant amount of money. And so sometimes this takes time to build. And because Rotary changes its leadership every single year, it's kind of an ongoing process. But if you don't have that relationship now, now's a good time to start it, not only with the current district governor, but also with the one who's the elect and the nominee. A nice thing about Rotary is they kind of have their leadership identified a couple of years in advance. So I already know now for my district who the next district governor is going to be, and even the one after that. And so being able to start to meet with those people and see them at events and know that you're the Shelterbox representative, but at some point asking them, what can we do together at your district conference to really make a big splash and to help show the community all the good Rotary is doing in the world. Those types of things really goes a long way. Also, being able to have blurbs put into the district newsletter. I know that mine is always looking for information, so I recently sent them an article about last year's hurricane season, since we're getting into that again this year. There are articles on the portal that are already written that you can just kind of cut and paste. So one is an interview with an SRT. So Ishan, who was on the call earlier this week, does a question and answer thing. There's other ones that are about our work on particular deployments. And again, we keep adding to that. So there's some content already there. And then also on our brand asset banks, there are great stories and photos like the one Sharee shared with us earlier today. And so that's an easy thing too to submit. And so know that that's an opportunity. And then on the right-hand side is just kind of a planning checklist for some, again, based on tips that we know work from other parts of the country and from our successful areas like what you guys have there in Colorado, requesting that Shelterbox could be part, like the district governors have to go to all 60 of their clubs over the course of their term. So, asking if they would talk about Shelterbox as they're out in their travels. Sometimes they'll assign that task to their assistant governors. I heard a story yesterday, Bill Woodard shared that he had a district without any ambassadors, and he asked if he could put article in the district newsletter. And the DG said, well, you can, but I'd rather just assign it to my assistant governors and have them go find people for you within the clubs that they're working with. And so he just went straight to the source and was able to find some new volunteers that way. So again, it's really kind of helpful to have those people on your side if it's possible. And then there's some other ideas on there, familiarizing yourself with the club foundation grant process and things like that. But again, you can kind of fill in different things you want. So any thoughts around any of that? Or
Those are all great ideas.
Thank you. Liz, does this stuff kind of make sense for your area if you're thinking about how to pick it apart, or you're already far down the path and this is old news? Maybe. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yep, we can hear you now.
I had my phone muted because I was having my lunch. I think this makes our DG was just here last week, and I gave him my card and asked him about if you had anybody on their staff who was shelter box and stuff. So trying to make that work.
Oh, good. Yeah. The other thing is, every district is a little different. So some districts also have a position that's like an international service officer, or some districts in the past have even nominated like a shelter box district representative too. So there's a chance to maybe even suggest to them that become a position or that type of thing. So David, any ideas to share or stuff that's worked for you?
No, I kind of like this, the layout of this kind of planning guide, because it helps me look at it and focus a little bit. One thing for Catherine and Lee up there, one of the reasons I got to them was because Bill Emsley, who now past district governor in 5440 up there, when I reached out to him back at the beginning of his year, was really excited about it, and was the reason I got up there and was able to be so effective last year. And 5440, of course, is northern Colorado and all of Wyoming. So really, it, like you said, it can be hit and miss on the district governors. Mm-hmm. I know the district governor right now in 5450 is a great proponent, and she wants to do some more stuff with me. But reaching down to that nominee and the district governor-elect, I think has some value in it too, because they're the ones that are planning their governor year. If you're just talking to the district governor right now, they're hard into it, and
right.
Their plan's already in place, and they're running like mad. So.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like maybe the incoming ones are a little bit more malleable because they're still trying to decide what all they want to do during their term, and so there's more chances to say, hey.
And that's something that I'm saying needs to be done, because I haven't done it.
Okay.
Yeah, I look at it and go, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay. So.
Cool. Yeah. And then just in thinking about how to chunk out your areas, I mean, I obviously started by just calling clubs that were close to me geographically, but then I also looked at those that kind of had higher giving within my my district, or had like more members. So there's a lot of information that's available on my Rotary. So you go to rotary.org and log in to kind of the backside of the website. And by doing that, I can see information for my particular district. So my district happens to have a listing of all the clubs and how many members are in each one. So I made sure in my head, I knew, I want to hit these 5 this year because I know that they have more members. And then any other requests that I get around that, I'll make sure I have time to fill in for. So it can just kind of help you map out a little bit. And that's not to say we shouldn't visit the small clubs. Sometimes you do, and you get, the 3 people that are in the room are super excited, and then they'll just take it and run with it. So, but there's different things that you can look at to start to break out your plan. Sharee, I know you've been kind of doing some Arizona road trips. Do you want to talk about what that looked like or how you got it set up?
Oh, absolutely. So I was a new Rotarian as of March, a shelter boxer as of January, and became the only active moving around shelter box ambassador in my district when I joined Rotary in March. So I immediately made connections at district conference and started introducing myself to Rotary leadership. I'm very fortunate that I have 2 assistant governors in my club who helped me kind of make some of those introductions. But setting up at district conference and just offering myself up was enough to gain the attention that I needed. And my district runs basically 2/3 of the state. So I'm traveling anywhere from near South Arizona up through the Grand Canyon, actually. And there were a mixture of clubs. There was clubs that are already supporting Shelter Box, but maybe needed the update, you know, that we're not tracking boxes anymore, or maybe they didn't even realize that they were a hero club, and I got to explain to them what that was and deliver a banner to them. That was great. But then there were clubs who have been around since 1921 and maybe have only heard Shelter Box in passing, if heard about it at all. And I was invited to come and present. And just by sharing my Shelter Box story, I am gaining that awareness of our mission, what we're doing, and our history with Rotary and the relationship we have, and sharing with them that the majority of our revenue does come from Rotary channels. It has been enough to gain the awareness that we need and increase the fundraising dollars here in my district and in this part of Arizona, and really just a lot of support. If you follow me or if you looked at the Facebook page, you'll see that I was doing this service above selfie, and I'm really just trying to put my own spin and personality into this ambassadorship, and it's been fun. Have built the relationship with the DGE and the DG nominee, and yet to really shake the hand of the current district governor. I have a great relationship with the past district governor, but I've already started talking about future district conferences where I'm going to be acknowledging these supporting clubs at district conference, something completely different for this district. And it's great for them to fully be supportive of my ideas to further engage Rotary with Shelter Box in Arizona, and to have them on board. And their offers to help have been great. Everything from let me get you connected to another club and get another presentation set up where maybe I haven't had a chance to meet the program director for that club yet, to let me tell you who you can contact outside of Rotary, or let me help you build a better network even beyond just what you've already spoken to. So that's been great, and couldn't say it enough that it all starts with the willingness to share the story. And best story I have on my roadshow is that club from the 1920s. Wasn't really expecting much. A lot of people there though. I did my presentation, and at the end, a gentleman stood up and he said, "This is something our club has to support, and I want to get us started. I offer the first $1,000 and we'll be matching what our club donates." And then another club member followed him and said, "I want to see us get up to 6 boxes a year." And again, it just started with my willingness to share my story, and it was a really great way to end the road trip for sure.
Yeah, we were on with some ambassadors yesterday from Oregon, and they shared a story about having presented at a smaller club in Oregon, and no one seemed that enthused during their presentation, and they didn't get a check from from their talk or anything, and they left kind of dejected. But as it turns out, somebody who was sitting in that room was associated with an organization called Mercy Corps, and through Sea Mercy, what their program is that people who have private yachts and ships and boats donate the use of the watercraft if there are disasters, so that either relief aid workers can get in to country or we can ship in supplies. And so because of the result of that Shelter Box presentation happening, a conversation continued with our operations team, because the people contacted us soon after when there was a storm happening in the Philippines. And then that was actually how we got our Shelter Box response team members into the country when there were no other real options available at the time. And so it led to this huge partnership that we still have in place to this day. So you never really know what's going to come out of one of those presentations. And something that we hear a lot from ambassadors is, don't get deterred if you don't see the money coming right away, because, if a storm hits, people remember that you spoke and that this is a great organization, and they give it that time. Or sometimes it takes, a couple months for the board to kind of figure out what they want to fund. But just you being out there and telling these stories can have a huge ripple effect. And so that's why we really encourage that FaceTime with people and sharing the story with as many people as possible. And I know now I'm preaching to the choir because you guys all do that so wonderfully. There's just a last page of this planner that we'll send out to you today, but it just has some more ideas around, would it help me to have a mentor or somebody that I could tag team with on presentations or that type of thing. Some ideas for where you can go to find some more stories about impact shelter boxes had in the world and that type of thing. Presentation tips, we just wanted to see if on the phone you guys have kind of, like Sharee talked about on our last ambassador webinar, is there one thing that you don't leave the room without talking about, or something that we could learn from each other today that you guys want to share? David, I know you've been able to recruit a lot of new ambassadors by just kind of making that part of your pitch. Do you mind sharing about what that looked like?
Oh no, I think well, Catherine and Lee up there are part of that. But yeah, make sure that, and now it's in the new this year's PowerPoint presentation too. If you use that to talk about the volunteers and different levels of volunteering for Shelterbox. But I've been talking about that now for quite a while in terms of needing more ambassadors, and you talked about the club liaisons. That's one of the positions that I really try to highlight, because I think that's talk about low-hanging fruit kind of stuff. I think that's really something that if we can fill up our ranks of club liaisons, it's going to keep our contact with these clubs moving along. I just got back day before yesterday. I was up in Tuesday. I was up in Breckenridge, and I've been up there once. Anyway, really small club, like you said, but very enthusiastic club. And I know that they've been sending money to Shelterbox every year, and I made sure sign up for the Heroes program. You guys are already heroes. But yeah, if you just talk about that need for more people to promote the mission, you just keep talking about that. And Lee and Catherine just came out of the woodwork there up in Colorado Springs and came up to me after my presentation. So, oh, we want to do this. I was like, oh, okay, great. And
There really is how it kind of happened.
yeah. So just I'm not. I in the past I wasn't good at asking. Now you really have to put that ask in every time, because you don't know who's going to come forward and say yes. And if you get somebody that says yes to the club liaison position and keep them active and interested, I think that's a good training ground for future ambassadors too.
Yeah, definitely. Liz, having been through SAFE, anything specific you talk about? I know you came back guns blazing and have been just tackling your area down there. Anything you would share?
Well, I went down to Durango a couple of weeks ago, and they had done a really good job of talking to the other clubs in the area, especially since I couldn't get on anybody else's schedule. So it was a 6-hour drive for one presentation, but that was okay. And but they had a lot of other people in that presentation from other clubs, including a past district governor, so that was good. And the thing that we did a little bit differently for that was there was a guy there with 4 kids. They had heard about Shelterbox, and he said, hey, here's what I'm going to go do, and the kids wanted to go. So I said, hey, will you role play my family in distress, my displaced family? So I said, yeah, we'd be happy to do that. So comes time to do my presentation, I look to where he's sitting, and he's not there. And it's like, well, crap, they're sitting in the tent for me. They're already in the tent.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of fun, because, we were saying, hey, listen, this guy got out with nothing. He's got his kids. His wife was killed. She was at a dental appointment for real. But, what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? How are they going to stay together? So, I mean, it really I didn't get any money out of them. And I've still seen, and when people come to my club, I mean, that has to go to the board. So there's never a check. I'm interested to know how people are getting a check written right then, because my club doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it doesn't happen
okay.
very
Well,
often. Sometimes it's an individual.
okay.
Sometimes it's an individual club member, Liz, that'll be like, "I'll give 1,000. Who will join me?" or something. I've had that before, and then I've been to some clubs like mine is lax, and they know they have X amount during the year as kind of a slush fund, because like our golf tournament went over this year, and so if there's a speaker they really like, they'll just like kind of vote on the spot. You know, one club member in my room will stand up and be like, because we're a smaller club, he'll be like, you know, "I think this is a great cause. I'd like to donate $1,000," and then someone will second it, and then the club votes like in front of the person, and then they give them the money. So I mean, it just kind of varies, but more commonly it's what you're saying, like there's a process that has to take place, and that's why we're saying we like having those liaisons, because then there's someone to actually fill out the paperwork and make sure it gets pushed through, you know, or who reminds the board after you're gone, like this is a valuable cause, you know.
I do have a question though. The district governor was there the other day, and not during that meeting, but I think it was afterwards. Somebody said that the district doesn't do matching grants and global grants for Shelter Box, and that's not what I'm hearing from you guys.
So
Well, you can do a district matching grant. We've done a couple of those.
yeah, that's a good question,
Okay.
Liz. So we don't, Rotary's convoluted, but they have different pots of money, but Rotary International is the foundation, and that's who the dollars come from for global grants. And one of their criteria is that projects have to be sustainable. And so even though we fit into a lot of their 6 focus areas around like maternal and child health or community and economic development or building peace, those different buckets, because we're meant to be like this temporary solution, we've not in the past received any money from the Rotary International Foundation, because they say our project isn't sustainable because we're designed not to be. So it's just been Rotarians and clubs who donate dollars to us. But those district funds that are at the discretion of the district to spend are based on money that kind of the clubs put into this pot. And so those can be used for really whatever they want. And so we have had district grants in the past. And also we're working with the UK and with like Rotary International to see if we can't get money from the foundation. Now that we're doing so much more beyond natural disasters and working in all of these conflict zones across the world, you know, we've been in Syria since 2012. So we're working to see if we can't possibly get some larger funding from the foundation for some of those ongoing efforts. Does that make sense?
Liz, call me. We'll talk about the district grants.
Okay.
Sarah, I just have one more tip too in regards to presentations. One thing that has worked really well for me, and I know for other ambassadors too, is just the preparation that goes in before. So, you know, reaching out to me, or, you know, me having access to our information, but reaching out and finding out the club's history, their giving history, total giving, have they been a hero club? Do they have a liaison? It's something people ask me. Just what has their recent activity been, to be prepared going into that meeting? Are we thanking them for their support? Is this a total cold presentation altogether? Where are we at in the world of this presentation? And then once arriving there, also just reading my audience. I think sometimes as I'm getting to know the club members before the presentation and during the little social part, I kind of get a gauge of the tone of the audience and try to tweak and tailor maybe my presentation based off of those conversations of what these individuals might already know about Shelter Box, or maybe what they're expecting to receive out of my presentation, and being flexible in that. And if I have any control at all, knowing the audience beforehand. So I know, you know, while I was doing my road trip, I had a very traditional club up in Prescott, and that was a club that still does the songs out of the songbook, and that was one end of the scale, and they expected a certain type of presentation from me, very refined, pristine, and be able to answer their questions, right? Well, then later on in the week, 8 days later, I had a club that does nothing to do with the four-way, the pledge, no bell, no songbook, of course, and we ended up doing a more casual presentation and having more of a conversational based approach to the presentation. And I think knowing these things and being prepared with the audience, being prepared with the information about the club has helped a lot of ways in building the rapport with the Rotarians I'm getting ready to speak to.
Awesome, perfect. I don't know what happened to slideshow, sorry. That sounds great. And then anything around, gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't know why it's possessed. Okay, making the ask or kind of following up any things that you guys do. I'll share one tip that we heard on a call yesterday, but that person keeps a list of all their club contacts, so whoever they were going back and forth with to set up the meeting in some cases, or other times it's the person who's volunteered to be the liaison, or sometimes it's the club president, but they keep a list of all those people they've worked with during the course of the year, because then if a big disaster hits, or if we get nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, or there's something newsworthy to share, they send an email out to that whole group with this special update. And so they thought that really helped for getting donations, you know, if there's something that happens. So in addition to being like added into their regular giving budget, they thought that was something that could really spur donations by keeping in touch with a certain group of those people that they're already working with. The one thing I wanted to mention, sorry, a minute ago, is that we do have grant wording available on our portal too, that you can just cut and paste. So sometimes clubs have you fill out a 5-page grant application that wants to know about the history of the organization and who our board of directors is and that type of stuff. And so all of that is on the portal and you can just cut and paste. So anything like that we've tried to make as kind of easy as humanly possible. So know that that's there as a tool also. Another tip I've heard is that, you know, some of our ambassadors don't make an ask during the presentation, but they do the presentation and then try to meet with the president right afterwards to say, how can we become part of your regular giving? And so instead of just like putting a pitch out to the whole club, they'll follow up individually afterwards and then follow up with an email that has the Hero Club paperwork and, you know, encourage them to join. I've gotten some new Hero Clubs involved in New Mexico. And for me, I think it's so nice because a year goes by really quickly for me. And so instead of having to get back up to Santa Fe or to somewhere that takes a little bit longer to get to, I've got some of those clubs set up as heroes. And so it buys me a little bit of time before I need to kind of be back in front of them asking for dollars again. And so even though I've done little check-ins with them or those little updates like we talked about, I'm not having to go and do a presentation again quite as quickly. And so for me, it's been a nice way to kind of trying to cover a big geography to get them on this program to where I'm not having to do as much of the maintenance and I can just get them going. And then it's allowed me to kind of have some breathing room where I can go target other clubs, if that makes sense. So we do have just some information on the Hero program, and I would love to just hear, is this something that clubs in your area respond to, or are there any, you know, things you wish we had around this or any thoughts around it? From our point of view, it was a way to put some sustainable giving into place so that we could stockpile aid prior to a disaster rather than waiting until the disaster strikes to start to try to order equipment. And this is a really important piece for us to be able to pre-position our aid and to be ready to respond rapidly. And so our desire in wanting to set up this recurring gift program was so that we would have these funds from year to year that we know we can count on so that we can, you know, plan for and build a budget around these big disasters that could hit at any moment. One of the things.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Liz. Go ahead.
I have a question. I have a presentation next week to a service club that's not a Rotary club.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to take out, you know, the Hero program because it doesn't apply. But is there any way Any suggestions on how to present to them?
You know, if I have a non-Rotary group that I'm presenting to, I just tweak my presentation slightly. So, you know, rather than being as heavy with Rotary, I might say, you know, this organization was started by a group of volunteers like you who saw a gap in services being offered and started putting equipment together to help people, you know, and just make it relatable in that way. And then, yeah, like you said, the HERO program was designed specifically for our Rotarian partners. But if they do want to donate, like the cost of a box, for example, we do send out like special letters thanking those people, and they would receive information about a deployment and things like that for their gift. So there are still other like basically forms of recognition they receive, even though it's not like a HERO banner, since the whole banner thing is kind of particular to Rotary.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Cool. So then we just wanted to see, there's a couple, so Sharee has boundless energy and I'm lazy. So I always try to think of what I can do that's not going to require that much effort. So I really love going to PETS or to district conference because I can talk to people from 60 clubs all at once, you know, and it's less like going around and having to try to call each club and schedule a time. So I'll have a sign up sheet there where I say, write down which days your meetings happen and your phone number. Like I try to make them do a lot of the work for me. So there are PETS events coming up within your guys' region. So the one in Denver is March 1st to March 3rd, if you already want to mark the dates on the calendar for that. And that is one of those multi-district PETS that pulls in different districts. So if
I'm already lined up for that.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, great, David. Yeah, thank you. I know you.
Yeah, we've been at that for 8 years in a row, 10 years in a row, whatever it is now. So
yeah, thank you. So I just think those are a nice opportunity to, again, like because I'm lazy, I try to see if rather than just having a table in the hallway, if they'll let me at some point during the program speak. So last year during the PETS, I got to talk, you know, for 10 minutes about the work of Shelter Box and what it is that we do and how I'd be willing to go present to their club and about our partnership. And so anytime we can get stage time, it's very helpful. I went to a different PETS in Missouri and they had a big general session, but it was like chock full and I couldn't talk during it. But what they did let me do was to go to each district separate breakout and do a 5-minute pitch. So I had a crazy schedule and I had to kind of run from room to room because they had 1 hour where these different districts were doing their breakouts, but all the district governors agreed to let me do it. And so I just went from room to room and did my little pitch in each of their breakout sessions. So sometimes it looks different and weird, but anytime I can get in front of a whole group and like have the microphone, basically, I try to build that in. If you would like, we also have some content that we've been developing that could be done as a breakout session that deals with like leadership and teamwork and communications, a lot of the different things that our SRTs train on before they're set into the field. We have some trainings that can be done for like the incoming presidents, like in a 1 or 2 hour session. So if that's something your district is interested in, we can give you some more information and follow up. And then also Carrie Murray, our president, is willing to also go around and do a keynote talk, or we have SRTs or other leaders within our organization who are always happy to come and speak. And so keep in mind too, as these districts are looking for ways to populate those sessions, that we have speakers either within your region or we can bring in from outside to come and share about Shelter Box as well.
yeah, I wish that Heartland one wasn't on the same weekend as the High Country one.
I know, I saw that. I was like, why? Yeah. We've got some good ambassadors over there, Marshall and Katrina. So I'm going to reach out to them, David, and see if they can't get that covered.
Yeah, that's kind of like right on our cusp.
Yeah, good. So Catherine,
what about Idaho?
Go ahead.
What about Idaho and
Yeah,
Utah?
Idaho. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, okay. There's a zone that's coming up there, David, that we have coverage from Eric and Ned, who can come over from Eastern Washington. But yeah, we can chat about it.
Hey, Sarah, while we've been chatting, I received a question from Catherine regarding Shelter Box Apparel. And I wanted to let you guys know while I have you on the call, yes, we do have in process that vendor transition to supply you with ShelterBox branded apparel for your presentations. The samples from that vendor are currently in transit to me and should be arriving this week. And once I have them, I can approve the store opening, and then we'll post that information for sure on the Facebook page, and then it'll also go out in a newsletter as well. But the blue button Oxford button-ups are back. They'll have the updated ShelterBox logo on them, as well as some other items. So yes, it is.
I think we maybe just lost Sharee, but yeah, we're just quality checking this new vendor that we're using, and then within a couple weeks, Catherine, we think the store will be up and running.
That sounds great. Thanks. Thanks,
Yeah,
Sharee.
sorry for the delay. We used to manage the store totally out of our Florida office, and it was cumbersome, like managing all the inventory. And this is a company that will do all that stuff for us and ship the items, and so we're not left with like too many extra larges or whatever. So we're just shifting, how we do it, but we will have it soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions or things you guys need or stuff we can help with, or topics you'd like to see on future webinars or anything else? Okay, well, I'll work with David and see if we can't, you guys can tell me when it makes sense, but it's easy for me to get up there to Denver. So if there's a time it makes sense for us to all meet face to face and bring in some more of the ambassadors from that region. I know some of the folks like Pam couldn't join us on the call today, but I'd be happy to come up and we could, spend a day just kind of talking through different ideas and stuff if you guys would like to do something like that. So we'll all keep in touch, and David being the lead in that area, we can figure out when it makes sense to do and all that. And maybe
Sarah,
maybe David, it's during the pets there in Denver or whatever, but we can figure that out. Yeah, go ahead, Sharee.
I'm back. I have no idea how long I was talking to myself before.
Okay. Catherine, the shirts will be coming soon. There'll be a store, yeah.
Yes, store is coming. Blue Oxford button-ups are on their way. I believe the store will fully be launched by the end of the month. And then we have a Zazzle store open for novelty items, such as like your ShelterBox buttons that you can wear, or dog tags or luggage tags. We have some cute items in Zazzle. And then lastly, you mentioned pens. I'm guessing writing pens. Those can be ordered actually through the ambassador portal under supplies. And our administrative assistant, Kathy, can help fulfill that request for you. So a few different places to get different things. We'll make sure we send out a summary once all the different places are finalized.
Great. Thanks, Sharee.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep you guys longer than we have to, but we'll send out some information and notes to you, and super appreciate all of your efforts there. You guys are just killing it. So thank you so much. And we're always here for you. So if you think of other stuff after the call that you need or would be useful to you, please just let us know and we'd be happy to help.
Yep. Thank you for making the time, everyone.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.